My name is Eliza, and until about a year ago, my life looked like something straight out of a movie. I was the daughter of one of the most established families in Savannah, Georgia. Our house was picture perfect, our lives were governed by tradition and appearances, and my future was set in stone. I was going to marry Arthur Beaumont. To everyone else, Arthur was Prince Charming, the heir to a massive fortune, handsome, polite, the kind of man mothers dream of for their daughters. Our wedding was the social event of the year. The invitations, with their gold calligraphy, had already been sent out. The most exclusive ballroom in the city was booked. My dress, a creation of lace and silk that cost more than a car, was hanging in my room like a pristine white ghost of the future that awaited me. Everything was perfect. Absolutely, completely perfect. So, why did I have a permanent knot in the pit of my stomach? I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just pre-wedding jitters. But the cracks in our fairy tale were there, as thin as hairlines, but you could feel them. It was the little things, the kind of stuff that's easy to brush off. It was the times I'd walk into a room and Arthur would abruptly end a phone call with a rushed, "I'll call you back." It was the way his phone was always face down on the table as if it were guarding state secrets. Once, I saw a notification light up his lock screen. The name was Leah. Before I could even process it, his thumb had swiped it away. "Who's Leah?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. He flashed that rehearsed smile, the same one he used for photographers. "Oh, nobody important. Just an old college friend asking for a favor." The answer was too quick, too polished. And then there was the "I love you." I would say it and he would reply, "I love you too," always in response. Always like an echo, a programmed reply. He never said it first. I clung to the excuse that he was just a private guy, that he showed his love through actions, the expensive dinners, the delicate jewelry. But deep down in my soul, I knew. A woman knows when words come from the heart and when they come from a script. With less than 48 hours until the wedding, my mother was crying tears of joy as I had my final dress fitting. "You've made all my dreams come true, my dear," she said, adjusting my veil. I smiled, but my face felt like a plaster mask. The reflection in the mirror showed a perfect bride, but her eyes were screaming for help. That night, the doubt was eating me alive. Was I being paranoid? Was I sabotaging my own happiness out of fear? I needed proof that this was all real, that his love was real. I decided to do something spontaneous, something completely off our perfect social schedule. I grabbed the bottle of rare scotch that I knew he loved and drove to his apartment. I just wanted to see him, to have a normal conversation, to feel like it was the two of us against the world. I just needed him to look me in the eyes and, for the first time, say he loved me, without me saying it first. I had no idea that instead of finding the peace of mind I was looking for, I was walking straight into the eye of the storm that would tear my life apart, just so I could build a real one later. The hallway of Arthur's luxury building was silent and carpeted. My heels made no sound. I stopped in front of his door, the cold bottle of scotch in my hand. I was about to knock, but then I heard voices. Arthur's father, deep and commanding. His mother, softer, and him. The door was slightly ajar, a crack of less than an inch. My heart started to pound. I should have announced myself, but something held me there. An invisible force, a self-preservation instinct telling me to just listen. "The deal with her parents is sealed," Mr. Beaumont said. "The merger of the companies after the wedding will solidify our empire for generations." My stomach turned to ice. "A deal? A merger?" Mrs. Beaumont chimed in. "But is he happy, dear? Arthur, my son, are you ready for this?" There was a pause. And then Arthur's voice, completely devoid of warmth, came through. "Mother, don't be so dramatic. Of course I'm ready. Eliza is a lovely girl. I care about her, I do. She's like a sister to me." Sister. The word echoed in my head, ricocheting like a bullet. Sister. The man I was supposed to walk down the aisle with in a few hours saw me as a sister. "But you don't love her," his mother stated, her voice low. Arthur sighed, a sound of pure impatience. "Love is for poets and teenagers. This is about the future, about security, about the Beaumont legacy. Her family has the name, we have the strategy. It's a perfect union. It's business, not romance." I felt the air leave my lungs. My nails dug into my own palms to keep me from crying out. I wanted to run, but my feet were glued to the floor, forced to hear the rest of my own death sentence. "And what about Leah?" his father asked, his tone pragmatic. "You need to handle that. There can't be any scandals." My blood ran cold. Leah, the old college friend. "It's already handled." Arthur said, and I could almost picture the dismissive wave of his hand. I'm meeting her tomorrow morning before the ceremony. One final goodbye. She gets it. She always has. A goodbye. On the morning of our wedding. He was going to go from her arms to me at the altar. That was it. The bottle of scotch slipped from my hand, landing on the plush carpet with a dull thud. I flinched, sure they had heard it. But they just kept talking, planning the practical details of my fake future. With a hand clapped over my mouth to stifle the sound of my own shattered breath, I backed away. I took one step back, then another. I turned and fled down the hall, no longer caring about the noise. I ran to the elevator to my car, away from that voice, from that truth. The world I knew, the future I was promised, had all turned to ash. I drove aimlessly through the streets of Savannah, tears blurring my vision. I wasn't his fiancé. I was collateral on a contract. I was the most valuable asset in a business deal. And I had absolutely no idea what to do next. I got home and snuck in like a thief. The house was quiet, asleep, dreaming of the perfect daughter's happy wedding. I went straight to my room. And there it was, the wedding dress, hanging there, shimmering in the moonlight filtering through the window. Before, it was a symbol of hope. Now, it looked like a shroud. I sank to the floor, hugging my knees. The pain was a physical thing, a pressure in my chest that made it hard to breathe. My mind was a war zone. One voice screamed, "Call it off! Expose him! Tell everyone the truth!" But another voice, the voice of tradition, of duty, of fear, whispered, "What about your family? The humiliation? The scandal? Hundreds of guests, contracts signed. You'll destroy everything over a broken heart." I could go through with it. I could put on the dress, walk down the aisle, say, "I do." I could live a life of luxury and comfort with a husband who treated me like a prized possession. A lot of women in my position would. They'd swallow the pain and protect the stability. But as I looked at my pale reflection in the mirror, I saw a stranger. A doll about to be placed on a gilded shelf. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. The pain morphed into a cold, clear anger. I was not a business deal. I was not a sister. I was not anyone's consolation prize. It was 4 a.m. when the I decision became solid as steel. I wasn't going to blow up their world. I was just going to fall off the map. I stood up, moving with a purpose I had never felt before. I opened my closet and ignored the designer dresses. I grabbed an old backpack, jeans, a few t-shirts, a hoodie. I took the box where I kept my savings, cash from birthday gifts I'd never needed to spend. It was a few $1,000s. It would have to be enough. Finally, I sat at my desk and wrote a note to my parents. The words were the hardest I'd ever written. "Mom, Dad, I am so sorry. I can't do this. Please don't try to find me. I'm safe, and I need to do this for me. I love you." I left the note on my pillow. With the backpack on, I slipped out of my room. I passed my parents' door, hearing their quiet breathing. A wave of guilt almost knocked me over, but I kept going. I crept down the stairs, barefoot, one step at a time. At the front door, I put on a pair of sneakers. I turned the key in the lock as silently as possible and stepped out into the humid, pre-dawn darkness of Savannah. At the bus station, the smell of disinfectant and stale coffee was the opposite of the jasmine perfume in my garden. It was the smell of freedom. I looked up at the departures board. New York, Miami, Los Angeles, those were places they'd look for me. Then my eyes landed on a name that meant nothing to me. Atlanta. It was close enough to be real, far enough to be a new world. One-way ticket to Atlanta, please. As the bus pulled out of the station, the lights of Savannah began to fade. I didn't look back. I was a runaway bride with nothing but a backpack and a broken heart. But for the first time in my life, I was the one driving, and that was both the most terrifying and the most thrilling thing in the world. Atlanta met me, with indifference. It was a city of concrete and ambition, loud and anonymous, the opposite of Savannah's historic, suffocating beauty. It was exactly what I needed. The first few months were brutal. I rented a tiny apartment in a neighborhood my parents didn't even know existed. I learned how to make instant ramen 5 different ways and how to count every single penny. The princess of Savannah, who had never worried about a bill in her life, was now learning the meaning of a hard day's work, and work was the hardest part. I sent out dozens of resumes. Nobody cared about my art history degree or my skills in planning galas. I was overqualified in pedigree and completely underqualified for real life. After countless rejections, I finally landed an interview for an entry-level assistant position at a small marketing firm. The manager, a middle-aged man named Mr. Davis, looked at my resume with a raised eyebrow. You seem a little out of your element, miss, he said bluntly. I swallowed my pride. I know I don't have practical experience, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But I'm a fast learner, I'm organized, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes, from answering phones to getting coffee. I just need a chance. Something in my honesty must have gotten through to him. He gave me the job. The pay was low, the work was grueling, but it was mine. It was real. For the first time, I was building something that belonged entirely to me. 3 months went by. A new routine took hold. I had co-workers, not bridesmaids. I had an apartment to clean, not a mansion, to manage. And I was starting to feel okay. The pain of Arthur's betrayal had faded into a scar, a reminder of my own strength. I didn't think about him anymore, until the day he showed up. I was leaving the office building, exhausted after a long day, dreaming of my couch and a cheap dinner. Eliza? The voice hit me like an electric shock. I froze. Slowly, I turned, and there he was, Arthur Beaumont, dressed perfectly, his hair flawless, looking like a magazine ad in the middle of the gray sidewalk of my new life. In his hands was a giant bouquet of red roses. Arthur, I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. How did you find me? He took a step forward, that practiced apologetic smile on his face. I moved heaven and earth to find you, Eliza. I made the biggest mistake of my life. The moment I woke up on our wedding day and you were gone, I realized it. I realized that I love you. I really do. The words I had once longed to hear now sounded like poison. He was standing there, trying to pull me back into the gilded cage I had just escaped. And for one terrifying second, that old habit of submission almost won. But then I remembered the crack in the door, his cold voice, and the strength I had, built over the last 3 months, came roaring back. I forced myself to stand my ground. I took a deep breath and crossed my arms, creating a physical barrier between us. You realized you loved me? I repeated, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. Yes, he said, taking another step. I panicked. The pressure, my family. I didn't know what I felt until I lost you. Please come home. We can start over. The roses in his hand looked like a sick joke. I looked at him, at his earnest face, at his flawless performance, and I felt pity for how empty he was. Let me ask you something, Arthur, I said, my voice low and sharp. Where were you the night before the wedding? Around 10 p.m. He blinked, caught off guard. I was at my apartment with my parents. We were finalizing the last details. Details, I repeated. What kind of details? Family stuff, Eliza, it doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm here now. It matters to me, I said, taking a step forward, reversing our roles. Now he was the one who looked uncomfortable. It matters a lot, because I was there too, Arthur. Right outside your door. The door was open a crack. The color drained from his face. The smile faltered and died. The look of pure shock in his eyes was all the confirmation I ever needed. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I heard everything, I continued, each word a stone. I heard you call me your sister. I heard you say our marriage was a business deal, a matter of security, not romance. I heard you and your father talking about the corporate merger. And most importantly, I heard you making plans to meet Leah on our wedding morning for one final goodbye. He finally found his voice. Eliza, it wasn't like that. You misunderstood. No, I cut him off, the anger finally surfacing, but it was cold and controlled. For the first time, I understood perfectly. You don't love me, Arthur. You love the idea of me. You love what my family name can do for yours. I was your most convenient acquisition, and I refuse to be the most expensive item in your inventory. He just stood there, exposed and speechless for the first time in his life. The roses fell from his hand, scattering across the dirty sidewalk. Please leave, I said, my voice tired now, and don't ever look for me again. I turned my back on him and started walking, and I didn't look back. I expected to feel triumphant, but all I felt was a profound sense of relief. It was over. The chapter was finally closed. Eliza, you okay? I stopped and looked over. It was Leo, one of the designers from the firm. A quiet, kind guy who always had a friendly smile for me. He had seen the whole scene from a distance. I gave a small smile. The first real one in a long time. Yeah, Leo. I think for the first time I'm great. He didn't ask any more questions. He just walked silently beside me for a block. That simple. Wordless companionship was worth more than all the bouquets of roses in the world. A year passed since my escape. A year in which I built a life. I got promoted at work. I made friends. Leo and I started dating. A slow, organic development built on laughter and mutual respect. He loved the Eliza from Atlanta, the woman who ate pizza on her apartment floor and had a killer work ethic. He knew nothing about the heiress from Savannah, and I liked it that way. Then, the phone rang. It was my mom. Her voice wasn't demanding, just full of longing. It was her 60th birthday, and all she wanted was her daughter there. I felt it was time. I wasn't running anymore. I could go back, not as a fugitive, but as a visitor. Returning to Savannah was surreal. The streets were the same, but I was different. My parents' house, which once felt like a cage, now just felt like a house. The conversation with them was hard, full of tears and apologies on both sides. But in the end, they looked at me and saw not the bride who disappointed them, but the strong woman I had become. And they were proud. At my mother's birthday party, I knew it was inevitable. And then it happened. Across the ballroom, I saw him, Arthur. On his arm was Leah. They were married. My heart gave a jolt, but not of pain. It was a jolt of curiosity. They laughed at something, and the sight of them together didn't cause a single pang of jealousy, just the opposite. A wave of peace washed over me. He was where he was supposed to be. And more importantly, so was I. Later that night, our paths crossed near the bar. "Eliza," Arthur said, his voice strained. "You look great." Leah gave me a shy, almost guilty smile. I smiled back, and it was the most genuine smile I had ever given them. "You both do too. I'm happy for you. I wish you all the best." And I meant it. The anger was gone, leaving only the peaceful indifference of a turned page. The best revenge wasn't a dramatic confrontation. It was the fact that their happiness no longer had any effect on mine whatsoever. Back in Atlanta, sharing a cheap bottle of wine with Leo in my little apartment, I thought about it all. People in Savannah probably still told the story of the runaway bride, the crazy girl who threw it all away. But they didn't know the truth. That act of craziness wasn't me running from my life. It was me running to my life. It was the first and most important courageous thing I had ever done. Refusing to be a footnote in someone else's biography allowed me to write my own story. The ultimate revenge against Arthur wasn't exposing him or humiliating him. It was simply becoming so whole and happy on my own that his betrayal became irrelevant. He didn't break me. He set me free. And that's a kind of justice no amount of money can ever buy.